Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to get started on a Jeff Gordon number 24 Dupont Automotive Finishes Monte Carlo from the 1998 Daytona 500. It's a Revell collection kit. Its copyright is 1997, so I don't know what to expect really. If anybody's built the kit, please comment below and give me some advice on what to do. I wouldn't say I've struggled so far, but it's definitely challenged some of my skills, which has been good. So yeah, let's jump down to the spray paint booth and get going. Okay, so first we started off with Mr. Surfacer 1500 white. Unfortunately, I forgot to hit record, so we start with XF53 from Tamiya. Yeah, I find this paint has to go on a little wetter than the lacquer. So I went a little heavier. Yeah, a couple of coats here. I just made sure I try to focus to get like everything in one shot as opposed to missing areas. You'll also notice the chassis is in two separate pieces. I glued the side and the bottom together along with the middle part of the roll cage. I did this because I felt like I could cover all the areas properly with the paint. So that's why it looks like this. It actually came together pretty well, so I'm pretty happy with the end result. Now we're doing the big part of the chassis. Yeah, I just made sure I got everywhere. Yeah, wasn't really too hard to do. I made it pretty easy for myself, I think, by the way I did things. The only hard part was waiting for it to dry so I could flip it over and do the underside. But yeah, overall came out really well, and I'm really happy. I'm now priming all the flat black pieces with Mr. Surfacer Mr. Surfacer 1500 gray. Yeah, I took a couple coats, but we got them all. It wasn't really a big deal here. It was rather easy actually. We're now spraying Tamiya LP3. Yep, back to the lacquers. I like them a lot. I will be using more of them as they become available. They're kind of hard to get where I live, but I'm working on it. There was some pretty complicated parts here. I had to mask for the Nerf bars that go around the roll cage and the netting. So that was a little difficult, but I thought I did a pretty good job considering this is the first ever NASCAR I've ever built, so I didn't know what to expect really. So so far so good. I hope it keeps going this way because so far it's been good. I saved the netting for last. For the reason being, it kind of took some precision, and I don't know. I felt like it required a little bit of finesse to kind of not get overspray on certain parts. I mean, I did a pretty good job masking, but I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to paint anything that didn't need to be painted. So nothing ended up being painted that way, so I was pretty happy overall. All the masking came out great. Yeah, I'm super happy. So yeah. So yeah, we're using the lacquers here, so I kind of had to layer it on, and on top of that, I mixed a little bit more paint than I had anticipated to use. So I kind of went over parts and made sure everything was covered. So there was a couple extra coats that probably didn't need to go on, but in the long run really didn't hurt anything. It probably helped if anything. So yeah. Here I'm priming all my metallic colored parts with Mr. Surfacer 1500 black. Uh, yeah, I like using this with metallic parts. I find it helps with the gloss coat that I put over top just to make sure everything's black so there's lots of reflectivity. Now I'm giving all these parts a gloss coat with Tamiya LP1. So yeah, just light coats until you're satisfied with your buildup and how it looks, and then you can spray your metallic colors. So now I'm spraying my XF2. I'd already primed these parts in white beforehand. I didn't get it on camera because someone forgot to hit record. I'm not going to point the finger at who that was. We're now spraying with LP38. The engine block and the oil pan and part of the steering assembly is painted this color. So yeah, I started off with those colors first, and then they also had to be masked off and painted LP61, or I think it's XF56. So I now have the parts masked off that have to be painted LP61, and yeah, it came out great. It was the first time I used this color, and like I said earlier, I like it a lot better than XF56. I don't know. I think the lacquers are slowly going to replace the acrylics in my line of paints just because they perform so much better. We're now down at the bench. I start by using the Tamiya white glue for the exhaust manifold. This I already had pre-assembled off camera with the air cleaner on it just because it was easier for me to handle. I'm kind of clumsy, so I didn't want to have any accidents on camera. And then put the valve covers on. A little bit of a struggle with the chrome plating. I managed to scrape it off and get parts to stick, but for the most part I had to use crazy glue for everything, especially the exhaust. So here I'm putting the distributor with the distributor wires in place. This was probably the easiest part of the whole engine. Now we're doing the belt assembly, just putting the alternator on. Here I'm using Tamiya extra thin to put the belt assembly in place. There's just two posts that it kind of connects to, real easy connection. I didn't have too many problems with the engine other than the chrome parts not sticking with the regular glue. Now we'll glue the belt for the oil pump. This went on pretty easy. It's actually what I think is the oil pump. I don't really know much about cars, so if anybody hears anything wrong, please don't roast me in the comments. So because of the issues I had with the exhaust not sticking, I had to do it off camera. But once I got my super glue and accelerator in, it came out pretty good. So now I've started with my roll cage. I have everything painted and ready to go. So we're going to start with putting the pedals on. Pretty basic here, not too much to write home about, folks. Now I'm just putting the fire extinguisher in place. Just a word of the wise, in this kit there's a decal for the fire extinguisher. It's easier to get it on now than to do it later, like me. So I would do it now because I had to do it after this, and it was very difficult. Now we're just gonna glue the gear shifter in place. There's not really a locating point on this. There's a square that it goes into, but it just sits in there. There's no post or anything to kind of hold it in place. So be very careful with this part, folks. Now we're putting the stifter bar in place for the roll cage. Yeah, this locates into a hole with a small locating point. Yeah, fairly easy, folks. And now for the seat. Again, there's not too many details provided in the instructions as to where decals go. There's a spot on the actual seat where you can see where one goes. But the wraparound one, I didn't know either it went on the inside or the outside, so I gambled on it and put it on the outside. So if I'm wrong, please do not roast me. Revell's instructions are horrible. Now attaching the side of the roll cage was very difficult. I had to use Tamiya extra thin and Bob Smith Industries medium thickness super glue to get everything to stick. And even with the super glue, I still had to use accelerator. Super glue and accelerator is good, but sometimes it eats through your paint if you use too much like I did. We'll now place this stiffener bar in place. Unfortunately, the extra thin didn't do the job as well as I would have liked. So I actually resorted to using Bob Smith Industries medium thickness and his accelerator. It worked great. It held it together. However, I did use a little bit too much and it did show some white plastic. We're now locating the air hoses. They're a bit fiddly, but I ended up getting them okay. You just got to take your time and be patient and sort of work them through the roll cage one little bit at a time until you can get it lined up and in place. Other than that, I had no real issues with them. And as you can see, after some wrestling and a little bit of swearing, I was able to get it in place to where I was happy with it. Here I'm just dabbing a little bit of Tamiya extra thin on some locating points for the hoses. And I just left it alone for a couple hours and let it kind of lock itself in place. This part I actually used Tamiya white glue for. I felt like its viscosity would hold it better. Okay, and that's it for part one. Yeah, we got the chassis and interior painted and assembled. Well, the interior assembled anyway, and the engine assembled. So we'll do the suspension next, and hopefully by then my paint will arrive, and we can do the body work. So it's all dependent on when it's going to get here, unfortunately. So hopefully soon. With the current state of the world, who knows? Anyway, we'll see you next time. Have a good one, folks.